The gentleman yields. I now recognize the ranking member on the Cyber Subcommittee. You're still in that role, right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Yes,
Glad to see you staying there.
Yeah.
We're going to come to your community. I think we're going to do a field hearing.
That'd be great.
Yeah, in Palo Alto
cyber
area
work out
on cyber. Yeah. So I recognize the gentleman from California for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Great. Thank you, Chairman. This committee was stood up to address threats to the homeland after September 11th, something my colleague to the right knows a lot about, being here since its inception. And today I just want to briefly address the question as to whether we are safe today as a country. Because what I'm seeing from this administration is that we are taking our eye off the ball. We had a terrorist attack in New Orleans to start the year. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, other terrorist organizations want to hit us and hit us hard. We've got the Super Bowl this weekend back in New Orleans. We have the World Cup in 2026, and we have the Olympics in 2028 in the United States. There are a lot of prime national security targets. However, what we are seeing are actions from this administration that do not make us safe. The most basic job of government is for people to feel safe. So when President Trump releases 1,600 violent criminals into our communities, people who brutally attack police officers, we should not be surprised that they're already committing crimes. One of them, just last week in Indiana, was pulled over by a police officer and, shocking, didn't want to obey that officer's orders, fought the cop, tried to use his own gun on the cop, and thankfully the cop shot and took that individual down. Others are committing acts of child pornography who have already been released. So are we safe when 1,600 violent individuals are released into the community? No, we are not safe. President Trump is seeking to fire thousands of FBI agents and has already fired many senior officials. Why? Because these individuals happen to work on cases that he was involved with where he was accused of stealing national security secrets and leading a coup against his own government. These federal agents keep their head down and they go where they're assigned. It's not a fantasy football draft. They don't get to pick the cases that they work on. They just do their job and they follow the evidence. But what happens when you take thousands of FBI agents out of the Hoover building? They don't work on terrorism, they don't work on child trafficking, they don't work on public corruption, they don't work on violent crime. So are we safe when we take thousands of cops off the beat to protect us from terrorism? No, we are not safe. The president is seeking to force resignations at the Central Intelligence Agency. These are the best spies in the world who have spent years developing foreign languages, are assigned all over the world, have taken years to train to get necessary experience, and they'll be taken off the beat to find the threats that face us as a country. Are we safe when they are not on their watch? No, we are not safe. And as we speak, Elon Musk, who no one elected, no one asked for, is at the Department of Treasury with a cyber gang with access to every American's tax returns and personal identifying information. So speaking of cyber vulnerabilities, are we safe when unvetted individuals have access to your most precious data, information about your employer, your healthcare, your social security number? No, we are not safe. Our job is to make the American people safer. And Mr. Steyer, if we gut and take off the beat the individuals who are supposed to work at CISA and monitor international cyber attacks against our local businesses, does that make us more able to respond to a cyber attack and protect Americans' data, or less able?
Congressman, as we've covered already, workforces are not improved in terms of their capacity to do their job if they are in crisis. And we have a federal workforce that is in crisis right now. On the issue of cyber issues, it puts us certainly at greater risk, both with respect to the specific cyber talent and more generally the workforce at large. So easy answer is this is not enabling our government to do its job in the way that the civil servants who are there would like to do it.
Great. And I'm all for getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. I support any efforts to do that. But when it comes to national security, we better be pretty damn careful about where we make cuts, because my promise to you is we will be hit if we take our eye off the ball. And I yield back.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize the chairman of our Counterterrorism Task Force Subcommittee, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Pfluger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I now recognize the gentleman from Arizona, one of our border states, Mr. Eli Crane, for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and talk with some subject matter experts about the pipeline of our cyber force and how we're going to compete with some of the threats as we see some of our adversaries increasing cyber attacks on the country. I just came from an oversight committee, and now I'm back here, and it's really the same nonsense going on in there. Just want to say to Elon Musk, wow, man, you are really effective because these guys are completely melting down. You must be doing something right. I think we might need to request some of your funds to get these guys maybe some pallets of tissues, some safe spaces, maybe a couple therapy dogs, because they are absolutely melting down. So good job, Elon. Now I want to cover something that Mr. Swalwell said a couple seconds ago. Mr. Swalwell talked about the responsibilities to protect the American people because this president pardoned the J6 prisoners, many who had been in prison for several years. It's just funny because I didn't hear that same concern from Mr. Swalwell or many of the Democrats on this committee when then President Biden was allowing hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens, many of whom were criminals, rapists, and murderers, and terrorists coming into this country on a monthly basis. So my point being is if you want to protect Americans, you can't just do it when it's politically advantageous. I want to start with you, Dr. Russomanno. As the Executive Vice President of Academic Affairs at Memphis and the former Dean of Engineering at Purdue University, I'm sure you were well-versed on developing the cyber workforce. My question is, how is the University of Memphis utilizing programs like CyberCorp, Scholarship for Service programs to build out the pipeline of the federal cyber warriors?
Thank you, Congressman Crane, for your question. I think it's important to remind everyone what CyberCorp is all about and how it impacts students. One is covering tuition. Another is providing a stipend that enables students not to have to work while they're pursuing their degree. Another is an opportunity to build social capital through networking, through internship fairs and other opportunities to learn more about the federal government and way they can make an impact through cybersecurity. This is a tremendous enabler, if you will. We've talked about how do we get more of our youth involved in cybersecurity. Certainly helping them through their daily living is a fundamental way so they can focus on their studies to help our nation.
Thank you. Next question for Mr. Rashote. According to the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, the cybersecurity school at the Wuhan-based National Cybersecurity Center planned to build 4 to 6 cybersecurity schools by 2027. The CCP has devoted significant resources to building their cyber force, and while the exact number of cyber warriors isn't available, it's safe to estimate that if the CCP issued a directive, it could bring a significant cyber force to bear against the U.S., especially given that according to U.S. Cyber Command, there are only 6,200 personnel across 133 teams working on cyber threats, and CISA at DHS has roughly 3,100 employees. My question is, how can academia, private industry, and the federal government partner together to ensure our cyber workforce pipeline is able to keep pace with the number of cyber warriors our adversaries can churn out?
Thank you for the question. I think that the partnerships between industry and academia are critical, and our approach has been to break down every barrier we can in terms of access to training and education. We've done that at Fortinet by making our entire catalog of training available free to anyone who needs that training, and we've challenged others to do the same.
Thank you. My next question is for you, Mr. Jones. How important is it to utilize American resources within our power grid so that our adversaries aren't getting a foothold in our critical infrastructure similar to Volt Typhoon hack? I was recently watching the Sean Ryan show. The topic was we're in an invisible war with Eric Bethel. My question is, and I'm paraphrasing from the show, how can companies who have a fiduciary responsibility to their investors to gain and seek profit balance that financial responsibility with other factors like patriotism?
Well, I think that the electric cooperatives in our country have a rich history of patriotism, Congressman. So I think we do take that seriously. And the virtues of our mission, service, making sure that we are doing our part to provide reliable power for now almost 50 million Americans, and that's always top of mind for us.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, can I enter this into the record? I know there's been some discussion here about layoffs and buyouts. This is an article, CISA among DHS offices exempted from taking OPM's deferred buyout offer.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize the gentlelady from New Jersey.
How to help now, and two, how to address the root causes of drought and intensifying fires to prevent this from happening again. But instead, we've seen officials in the Trump administration are talking about DEI instead of how we're going to help people. My colleague, Representative Blint, has already made that point. They're talking about how to cut disaster aid instead of letting FEMA do its job, which is literally to help people after disasters. I'd like to hear from Mr. Freevold, our witness, who's a retired fire chief. And please, a yes or no answer. The question won't be that difficult. Yes or no, is DEI making firefighters less effective?
No.
Thank you. And that's so right. So contrary to Elon Musk's claims that the LA firefighters did not prioritize DEI over saving lives. That is a lie, and it is a slap in the face to dedicated professionals and volunteers across the country who undergo rigorous training and risk their lives to save others. It was offensive when President Trump used DEI to blame air traffic controllers, and it's offensive here too. And despite Trump's lies about FEMA, the agency continues to help disaster-impacted communities during times of great need. So again, I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Freevold. Mr. Freevold, yes or no? Is climate change worsening disasters?
From the fire perspective, the one element of climate change I can speak to is vapor pressure deficit.
Is that a yes?
That part is
In that
making it more
respect?
severe, yes.
Thank you, sir. So as climate change worsens, disasters across the country, and as FEMA disaster declarations rise, districts across the country, represented members across the political spectrum are at risk. In fact, in 2 Illinois counties from my district that it runs through, Cook County and DuPage County, we've had no fewer than 5 disasters declared since 2019. 2 of those disasters, both flooding related, hit my district real hard, and many of my constituents were able to receive FEMA's assistance for repairs and losses. Without further ado, Mr. Chair, I would like to yield my time to my friend from California, Mr. Swalwell.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. I've toured the Altadena area. I visited the Palisades. I've had disasters in my own district, fire and flood. And every person in those disasters and experiences told me the same thing. They just want the government to help them. They just want the government to help them. That's what a woman told me when she stood on a pile of ashes in the Palisades and brought gloves and a large garbage bag and searched for any memento for her child and walked away with a tin bowl that her daughter uses in her make-believe kitchen. She's not worried about the red team or the blue team. She's not worried about did DEI cause this or not. She just wants the government to help them. My colleagues, including Mr. Issa, we walked Altadena last week together. We heard the fire chief say these were 80-mile-per-hour winds. He said it would have taken every fire engine in California to stop the devastation that occurred in California. So I just asked my colleagues, let's work together on this. Let's be in the solutions business. Don't use DEI as an alibi. Because when the president blames DEI on an air disaster and blames DEI on a fire disaster, what that tells me is DEI to you stands for didn't even investigate. That's what it means to fire victims in California as well. So we're in the solutions business here. And Chief Freevault, I'd like for you to just tell us, as we move forward, as we look at code and zoning, what can we do to better protect against unseasonable winds in this new era that we're in?
I'd return back to my opening statements on the 3 concurrent integrated actions. I don't believe you're here for there, but essentially prioritize selective management of combustible fuels immediately adjacent to wildland-urban interface communities, retroactively harden existing structures in WUI communities through evidence-based mitigations with defensible space, and require evidence-based mitigations to be included in part of the actuarial pricing of insurance rate setting.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Garcia. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. We'll now go to Congressman from California, Mr. Issa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello, Mr. Hill.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
For the last 3 years, Donald Trump campaigned on lowering your costs. Do they feel lower? Does anything about this hearing get us to lower costs? You were promised cheap eggs, and today you're getting cheap shots. And there's probably no better natural remedy for insomnia than a congressional hearing on anti-censorship. But, Mr. Taibbi, you're here, and would you agree that censorship is the suppression of ideas, words, images, and something that can be conducted by the government?
Yeah, it can also not be by the government, but yes.
And you would then agree that it's censorship for any government, democratic or authoritarian, run by a Democrat or a Republican, to bar the press from covering the government when the press reports something the government doesn't like?
Bar in what way?
Take away their credentials? Take away their access?
So, as a long time, I started my career as an independent journalist. Journalists who whine about not being credentialed should recognize that being on the outside is part of what being in the press is. I'm not terribly sympathetic to people who complain about that issue.
So if you report something that a government doesn't like and they take away access that others have, that's not censorship?
You can still cover it. That's not censorship.
Okay. And banning books, is that censorship?
Banning books is censorship. Yep.
So this topic is more complicated than the hearing title would suggest. And I would argue the difference between a democratic approach and democratic activists on this issue and Republicans is that as Democrats seek to attack mis- and disinformation, it's because their perception of information is that it is a means to the truth. And for many Republicans, they believe that information is a means to power. And so they are primarily concerned with using information, whether it's disinformation or misinformation, as long as it gets them to power, they're okay with it. And it's difficult to try and litigate what do you do with mis- and disinformation. And I will be honest with you. Sometimes Democratic voices object too much to mis- and disinformation. A lawyer once told me when I was a young prosecutor that I was jumping out of my seat too much, objecting to conduct by the defense attorney, and while I was probably legally right, it was just annoying the jury, and that I should pick my battles. So I get frustrated too sometimes when it feels like the penalty flag is being thrown too often. However, there is a difference, though, between censoring somebody because you disagree with them. I'll credit Chairman Jordan. He and I have had some spirited debates in this hearing room. Sometimes they've gotten quite personal by both of us. And sometimes when I land a point, he gets upset. His staff gets upset, but he takes it like a man. and he'll make his point right back at me, and I take it like a man. You know who doesn't take it like a man? Donald Trump, because he's not a man. He's a child. He's a small child, and he views censorship as a mean to get rid of people who disagree with him. He wants to get rid of judges who disagree with him. He said that as recently as yesterday. Speaker Johnson is backing him up by suggesting that judges should just pause in interpreting his violations of the Constitution. Trump goes after his perceived political opponents. I know. When I was a part of the Russia investigation, his DOJ subpoenaed my emails and my cell phone records. He's a petty, punitive child. And I can recognize a toddler because I'm a parent of 3 of them. And I recognize the same behavior. And yes, censorship is occurring, but it's self-censorship, and it's by you all. Because I hear you in our private conversations when you agree that Trump is a child. I hear the people you tell that Trump is a child, whether it's lobbyists or reporters. But you shrink in this room, and you shrink in the chamber, and you self-censor yourselves from speaking out because you're afraid. And he's laughing at you that you take him so seriously because he's unserious. He's laughing that you think he is so powerful because he's weak. He's laughing that you think he is so big because he's quite small. So we need you. We need your voices right now. It can't just be this side. We're all in to speak up, and we need you to speak up too. Otherwise, we are all out of freedom. And I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, if Mr. I'm only going to probably take 3 minutes if you want 2 more of mine, Mr. Fry. You sure? Okay.
Yeah, I just have a couple of UCs real quick, okay? First of all, I'd like to introduce in the record this image. We'll get you the hard copy. Mr. Epstein, Ms. Maxwell, and President Clinton. Also, I've got another article called Schumer Got Thousands in Donations from Jeffrey Epstein. Without objection, those will be admitted. And Mr. Swalwell, your 5 minutes now.
Thank you, Mr. Biggs. And look, as we have trafficking victims testifying to us about really important issues, I think it's insulting to them to try and bring in politics right before I question them. Look, we'll see whatever is on the Epstein list if the full list is released, but I'm here to get serious things done, and so my line of questioning will not be absurd in the spirit of what was just said. And Ms. Lopez, thank you for...
Chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell.
Well, this hearing is...
Hold it, we've got a problem with the clock again.
I'll take as much time as I may consume.
I know I'm not giving you 10:34.
You don't want to give me 10:34.
So, so they're checking on it. So we're going to be in recess for another. Are we good? We good? Okay. All right. I need some help watching that clock. But now, Mr. Swalwell, please.
Well, this hearing is beautifully titled, "The Right to Self-Defense." I see some moms who are here who would like to talk about the right to self-defense, because a lot of moms lost their children in many of the mass shootings conducted with assault weapons over the last 10 years. So I would like to ask, what was the self-defense in Aurora where 12 people were killed? What was the self-defense in Newtown where 26 people were killed, most of them babies, little kids? What was the self-defense in Orlando? 49 people were killed. What was the self-defense in Vegas when 58 people were killed? What was the self-defense in Sutherland Springs? 26 people were killed. What was the self-defense at Parkland, where 17 people were killed, mostly students? What was the self-defense at a synagogue in Pittsburgh where 11 people were killed? What was the self-defense in Thousand Oaks where 12 people were killed? What was the self-defense in Gilroy where 3 people were killed? What was the self-defense in El Paso where 22 people were killed? What was the self-defense in Dayton where 9 people were killed? Or Boulder where 10 people were killed? Or the self-defense in Buffalo where another 10 were killed? Or Uvalde where 21 were killed, mostly babies, mostly little kids? Or Highland Park, not an assault rifle, or Charleston in a church, or Santa Fe? What was the self-defense? When most parents hear that there's a right to self-defense, they say, bullshit. My kids have a right to go home. My kids have a right to go home. I should be able to look them in the eye in the morning when I send them off to school and not have to think about what they're wearing because I may have to identify them later. And that's what parents do right now. I know because they tell me. I know because I have 3 littles, 2 of them who are already doing mass shooter drills. I talked to a substitute teacher recently who told me that a student came up to her in her classroom and said, "Do you know where to put us?" And she was confused, and she said, "What are you talking about? Where do I put you?" And the student said, "You're not our normal teacher. Our normal teacher knows where to put us if somebody comes in here with a gun. Did they tell you where you're supposed to put us?" Those are the questions that our children are asking right now. Will you protect me? Do you think they feel protected by this hearing? By putting into our streets and our communities the most dangerous weapons so they can go into the hands of the most dangerous people? That doesn't protect anybody. Mr. Jackson, I wanted to ask you, and thank you for your work, can you think of a legitimate purpose for an untraceable, unregistered gun?
No.
So would you agree that the only reason you need a what's called ghost gun is because you're a prohibited purchaser and you can't get one any other way, or you intend to commit a crime and you don't want people knowing where the gun came from?
Exactly.
I'd like unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman, to enter into the record a California Department of Justice report on California's fight against ghost guns.
Without objection.
Mr. Jackson, can you talk about some of the preparations and trainings and studies you and your office had done around mass shootings and what we can do to not traumatize our kids, because I think there is trauma associated with having to go through some of these drills, but to also not leave them unprepared if that ever came to their classroom?
Yeah, I mean, we looked pretty intensely at how guns are impacting our schools and frankly, what steps have been taken. And one thing that was clear is that the biggest threat are guns that are coming from the home. 76% of school shootings come from the home, and not just some boogeyman in the alley. But the real work that needs to be done is engaging parents to be more responsible in securing and storing their firearms to help prevent these tragedies.
That's not taking anyone's gun. That's just saying there's things you can do to lock it up and keep
Exactly.
it safe. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, I was just going to make a point. Earlier, one of our Democrat colleagues talked about Kash Patel running the AT.
The member yields time for that purpose. And without objection so ordered, I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell.
We're about 2+ hours into this hearing, maybe 3, and as I'm taking stock, we're here because some guy I've never heard of, he might be in Congress, introduced an impeachment resolution, but he's not here. He hasn't been here for at least the last hour, and every witness here is in agreement that we really shouldn't be impeaching judges. I haven't heard a single colleague on the other side say we should be impeaching
Would the gentleman
judges.
yield?
Not yet. And this guy's just raising bucks on this issue. This is like a fundraising ploy, but we all are here, like we're in our suits, we're wasting, or we're not dedicating ourselves to other matters because this guy wrote some article. It just seems kind of absurd to me because no one even thinks that's the remedy. And I dare, whoever this person is, I hope he would come, I dare him to bring a privilege resolution, because we could actually debate this, but it's just a stunt. I promise you, it's a stunt. I will contribute to his campaign if he brings before this committee an impeachment resolution. Now, Speaker, you said some of these judges are pretend presidents,
How much would the gentleman give to his campaign?
700 district judges that are pretending that they're president. There's a judge, a single judge in a federal courthouse in Amarillo, Texas, where conservatives are forum shopping and having cases sent to him, Judge Kaczmarek. In 2023, he suspended mifepristone approval. That's a medical abortion pill. Can you direct me, Speaker, to the statement you gave objecting to him doing that? I couldn't find it.
No, I haven't spoken out on this issue until I was invited to come here.
Okay.
I wrote about it in 2011, and I submitted that for the record.
How about when Judge Kaczmarek ruled against ACA protections for LGBTQ individuals in November 2022?
Well,
Did you speak out against that rogue judge?
I think the term "I have not spoken on this issue until I was invited here" was generic and included every single one of the cases you want to ask about. So I will stipulate in advance. I did not comment because I did not comment. And I'm not here to comment on a single case.
How about an
I'm here to
election?
say-
Okay,
I'm
I
here
got
to
it.
say that the system is out of whack.
Speaker,
Which, by the way, I wrote about in 2011.
an elected Trump third term, is that constitutional? I think it's funny too.
If the Congress wishes to pass a constitutional amendment and the requisite number of states decide to endorse that amendment, of course he would have the option to run for re-election. In the absence of that kind of constitutional change, I think that it's impossible.
Thank you. And with that, I'll yield to the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Crockett.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate this.
5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm thrilled to see that Mr. Van Drew is here, because I think he is one of the honest debaters on your side who is engaged with us on a lot of spirited debates. And so I wanted to ask Mr. Van Drew, because earlier he did not speak when we put an amendment forward that said you can't deport an American citizen, and you guys voted to allow it. Mr. Van Drew, I know you think that's wrong, and if you want to be silent, I'm going to take your silence as you agreeing with me that that's wrong. Okay, so Mr. Van Drew's silent. I'm going to check it off that he agrees that deporting U.S. citizens is wrong.
The chair will note that the gentleman did respond.
I'll yield to you, Mr. Van Drew. Go ahead.
The gentleman did not seek recognition.
Okay. So, Mr. Van Drew, we also discussed and had an amendment that said firing veterans is wrong and you shouldn't do that. And you didn't speak up then, and I'm going to take your silence now as you agree firing veterans is wrong. So I'm going to put a check next to Mr. Van Drew being with us on that. We just talked about January 6 rioters not joining the Department of Homeland Security. And Mr. Van Drew, you're a good person. You're a dentist in your community. You stand with law enforcement, so you have not spoken up. So I'm going to take your silence to mean you agree with us that we should not hire January 6 rioters in the Department of Homeland Security. And Mr. Van Drew, we also said that it's probably wrong to deport a 4-year-old with cancer who is a U.S. citizen, and you didn't say anything, but again, I think you're a good person, so I'm going to take your silence to mean, Mr. Van Drew, that you agree with us that that is also wrong. And I'd yield to anyone else who has questions for Mr. Van Drew. I yield back.
The gentleman yields.
Mr. Chairman, where's Kevin Kiley? I'm a little worried about him. We've been going since 2 o'clock. I think we've had, Mr. Raskin, you could help me, probably 10 amendment votes? More? How many amendment votes have we had, guys? 15? Now, Mr. Chairman, your members have not spoken on anything, and we can take their silence as an admission that it's wrong to deport U.S. citizens and it's wrong to deport kids with cancer. But Mr. Kiley has missed every single vote that we've taken, and I think it's fair to do a welfare check on Mr. Kiley. He's tweeting. He's been tweeting during this hearing, but he's not voting. So I just, for the good of the committee, where's Kevin? Does anyone on your side know? Have you seen him? Is he in the room? Is he in the room? Just a wave or like a hey? Proof of life for Kevin Kiley, because these are pretty important votes: deporting U.S. citizens, firing veterans, deporting kids with cancer. I would expect that my neighbor to the north would want to be here, but he hasn't voted on any of this. So if anyone has seen Kevin Kiley, hey, just tell him there's a hearing going on and his constituents want to know how he would vote on any of this. Maybe if he wants to tweet at me that he's okay, I would accept that. I'd yield.
Do you want to suggest that maybe Mr. Van Drew go look for Kevin Kiley?
So we don't know where Mr. Kiley is.
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
Yes.
I want to follow up for a moment on your sort of silence, what the silence of our Republican colleagues means. Because you are correct that we've been here since 2 o'clock and not a single Republican on this committee has spoken on any amendment, and they have uniformly and unanimously voted down every single amendment, including, as you mentioned, deporting U.S. citizens. Apparently, that is okay. But my question for you, though, is, you know, our job in Congress here is to vote, right? Our job, we can say whatever you want to say, but ultimately, you are judged on your votes. So I guess my question to you is it better to say that their silence means that they agree with our amendments, or their vote against our amendments means that they disagree with all of them?
Yeah. How would you know? I don't know. We could only know if they were here to defend it. So we'll let their constituents draw a conclusion. But Mr. Kiley, the reason I bring him up is under the Republican budget plan, the 32,000 people who receive coverage under the Affordable Care Act in Kevin Kiley's district would see their average premium go up by $3,000 a year. That's a 121% increase. And many families would face an even steeper consequence. A 60-year-old couple with a household income of $85,000 in Folsom, the heart of Mr. Kiley's district, would see their health insurance increase by $22,560 a year, a 312% increase in premiums. So with all seriousness, like, where's Kevin Kiley? He has missed every single vote. I stepped out to talk to my kids to miss, I think, maybe 1 or 2 amendment votes. That's fine. People have things come up, but he hasn't been here all day. So if you're his friends, go find him, or Kevin, just tweet at us and tell us you're okay. And with that, and maybe tell your constituents how you'd vote on these important amendments. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
His time has expired. I now recognize Mr. Swalwell for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. You have an important job. I think you have one of the most important jobs in the cabinet. Thank you for doing it. I want you to have credibility and be taken seriously as you do the job. And so I want to put to rest this question about Mr. Garcia in this photo that the president posted on April 21. Madam Secretary, you agree that the letters MS and the number 13 in Times Roman numeral font, that they are doctored on this photo, right?
Congressman Abrego Garcia.
No, I'm just asking about this photo.
It wasn't based off of tattoos. It was based off an entire case.
And I'll accept that
case against him.
for the purpose of this question. You agree, though, that this is doctored, is that right?
The same protocols that are
Madam
applied
Secretary,
to every
I want you to have
individual with law
credibility,
enforcement.
and I want you to be taken seriously. Is this doctored or is it not
Sir,
doctored?
I am taken quite seriously
Is it
because
doctored
I approach
or
my
not
job
doctored?
with the importance that the president has given me to do
I understand.
my job.
Is it doctored or
One
not
thing
doctored?
that's important to remember is that every single time a case is built.
Madam
against
Secretary, I have a
individuals in
7-year-old,
the
a
same
6-year-old, and a
protocols.
3-year-old. I have a bullshit detector. I'm just asking you, is this doctored or not doctored?
Sir, the protocols in the case built against
Can you
Abrego
answer the
Garcia
question?
were exactly the same.
Madam
I
Secretary,
don't have
you're-
any knowledge as to that photo you're pointing to.
Okay, can you
I
take
don't,
her,
sir.
can you show
I-
her the photo? Walk her the photo down there. No, that one. Please take a look at this photo. It was tweeted by the president on April 21. It's been hanging out there for about a month.
So what is your point?
My question is, the numbers and the letter, MS-13, could you look at the photo, please? It's right in front of
Are
you.
you saying Abrego Garcia is not a wife
No,
beater?
no, ma'am,
That he's not a criminal?
ma'am,
He's not a human
you,
trafficker, and he's
ma'am,
not a
you,
member of MS.
you vouched for Mr. Garcia when
You're
your team
vouching for a
said,
man
ma'am, you
that is
vouched
a
for him when
known
you said he
violent
was
criminal.
mistakenly deported.
Sir,
I didn't vouch for him.
I did not say
In
that.
that
He
photo,
should have been deported, absolutely.
it's so
There was
telling
never a
that you
mistake
won't look at the
deport him,
photo.
And we will not be bringing
Was
him back
it
to
doctored
this
or not?
in staying here. If
Can
he
you
comes
look to
back
your
the
right
country, he
at
would
the
be
photo in
detained
front
right
of you?
away.
Madam Secretary, can you look to the right at the photo in front of you?
I have seen this
Okay.
photo as you held it behind your head.
Thank you. And the letters MS and the numbers 13, are those
Is
doctored
this your
or
entire
not?
testimony today is on a doctored photo? You don't want to talk about the facts?
Okay,
The
so
importance of our national security?
You acknowledge
What we
it was
can do
doctored.
to make sure that the United States is protected?
Madam
in-
Secretary,
from
this is not a
violent
hard question.
criminals?
Are those doctored or not?
Sir,
is that actually on his hand or not?
This is unbelievable to me that you're focused.
It's unbelievable to me that you can't look at the photo and tell the American
I looked
people.
at the photo, but I don't have any knowledge as to this photo.
Okay, so it's been hanging out there for 4 weeks. You are one of the chief law enforcement officials in the country. What have you done to investigate whether the president misrepresented the reason that that person has been detained?
Sir,
have
we
you
spend our
done
time-
anything to try and figure out whether that was doctored or not?
The mission of the Department of Homeland Security is to secure our nation and to make sure that we're out there going after those that are the worst of the worst, the criminals, the bad actors. Abrego
Yes.
Garcia.
So the answer is
a
you've done
known
nothing to
terrorist,
correct the
member
president.
of MS-13, a wife
Okay.
beater and a human
Okay.
trafficker that should never have been in this country to begin with.
So, Madam Secretary, thank you, Mr. Burnett. 2 weeks ago, your agency deported a 4-year-old American citizen in a stage 4 cancer battle. What are you doing to get him back to the country so he can get his treatment?
Congressman, this mother wished to keep her family together and to take her child with her. So as every single person is given the opportunity to, medical care is given throughout the process.
so it sounds like
And for this
nothing.
child, medical care was confirmed in their home country so that it would continue, and those treatments and whatever needs were needed to be had into the future were confirmed to be provided there before.
That child's home country is the United States. Do you believe you have a right to deport a U.S. citizen?
That mother chose to keep her family together, and that is what President Trump is
that's-
focused on. And
that's
making
not the
sure
facts of the case.
that- yes, it is the facts.
Madam
This
Secretary,
mother
moving on, do you,
confirmed that she wanted to
do
keep
you
her
have a
child
right?
with her, and our families and parents are given that ability to keep their children with them when they return to their home countries.
Madam Secretary, do you have a right to deport a U.S. citizen?
No, we do not deport U.S. citizens and have not deported U.S. citizens.
Except the 4-year-old that we just
No,
referenced.
that mother chose to keep her child with her, and that is her prerogative, and the law was followed in allowing her the opportunity to do that.
So, Madam Secretary, I'm a former prosecutor. I have put people away for life sentences who are gang members. I don't need to wear costumes to show how tough I am. What makes me different from you is when I put those individuals away, I did it with the weight of the law behind me. And I yield back.
Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields.
I ask unanimous consent to enter an article from Fox 45 that states documents reveal a second protective order filed by the
This is what kicking the shit out of fascism looks like. This is what it looks like. We've seen a lot of people cave to fascism in America. We're not. We've seen the CEOs cave. Will you cave? We've seen the law firms cave. Will you cave? We've seen the colleges cave. Will you cave? We can't cave. My name's Eric Swalwell. I'm the son of a cop, a mom who was a baker, and I went to college as the first in the family on a soccer scholarship. And before every big game, before every season, the coach would tell us, I want you to close your eyes and think about what does that last moment of the game look like? And I want you to think as we begin this season of democracy, what does the last moment of this march look like? We win! That's what it looks like. It's justice. It's redemption. It's accountability. And it's renewal. Because as you stand here right now, we have gone from a Trump slump to a Trump train wreck. We are going into a red recession. Our 401ks are 201ks. Our costs at Walmart and Home Depot and Target, where 4 out of 5 of the things we buy are from overseas, are going up. And where is Donald Trump? He's golfing. So to Donald Trump, I say, get your ass off the golf course and face the people. America first. It's Trump first. This guy is a con. Trump Bibles, made in China. Trump sneakers, made in China. The Trump shitcoin, made on a computer, made in China. And he's not just disappearing people. He's disappearing rights. And to that we say, disappear, we're still here. Our veterans, we're still here. We're still here. We're still here. That's right. And he wants to disappear our veterans and women and hardworking immigrants and our seniors and our kids and the sick. We're still here. So you are asking us, what is the plan? And I'll tell you this, we are not going to give a single vote to fascism inside the Congress because we know you're fighting outside the Congress. And so small victories will bring us big victories. We had a victory last Tuesday in Wisconsin. Thank you. We need a victory later this year in New Jersey and Virginia in the governor's race. And then we're going to march all the way to the midterms, and we're going to win on November 4, and we're going to cut our time in hell in half. So what my colleagues and I want to ask you, because just about a mile from here on January 6, 2021, we saw the bravest police officers. They showed up and they defended our democracy. And you don't have to put on body armor. You don't have to take a stun gun to your neck or a Confederate flag to your head. You don't have to suffer a heart attack or a stroke or traumatic brain injury, as we saw from Officer Mike Fanone or Harry Dunn or Danny Hodges or Sergeant Cannell and so many others. But if you show up with the same integrity and the same passion and the same vigor and love for our country that they showed, we will win. So April 5, this day, April 5, will be the day that America came alive. And when I am asked on November 4, 2026, when we win the midterms, how did you know? How were you so confident that we were going to win? I'm going to tell them. Because on April 5, I stood in front of a monument to freedom with people from all over the country, with people who work so hard and dream so big, and they said, we're not going to be fucked with. Thank you. And now, it's my honor to have us close out the congressional speakers to introduce to you someone who has been censured but is not silenced, Congressman Al Green.
And law enforcement officers from around the United States and around the world come here to honor those who work every day, who walk the beat, who protect us in our communities, but also to remember those who we've lost in the prior year. We are here today, my Democratic colleagues, although colleagues from both sides of the aisle were invited, to make sure that we do not forget the heroism that took place just over our shoulders on the Capitol steps on January 6th. And we're joined by two police officers who worked to defend the Capitol that day. They were not the only ones, but they embody the bravery that day in Officer Danny Hodges of the Metropolitan Police Department and Sergeant Ganell from the Capitol Police Department. We are here to ask the question, how much more do these officers have to do? What else do they have to give to be properly honored and to have this plaque, which is 2 years overdue, put inside the Capitol to memorialize what happened that day? Blessed are the peacemakers. They are the children of God. And our Republican colleagues are very good about talking about backing the blue. But backing the blue is not a t-shirt. It's not a slogan. It's a deed. And what we see too often is that they don't back the blue, they back the coup. In some warped way, the heroes of January 6th, through the acts of President Trump, have become the villains. And the villains, through the acts of President Trump, have somehow been sold to the American people as the heroes. But we know the truth. We know what these officers did, and we know what was done to them. And so in every 3-act story, the second act is always the hardest. And that's where we find ourselves right now, with the president and our Republican colleagues refusing to honor and acknowledge what these officers did. But there will be a third act, and it will come soon. And I promise you, in 2027, in early January, we will not meet out here. We will meet inside, and we will put this plaque in the Capitol, and it will stay there for all of time to honor these officers. What more must they do? They shouldn't have to do another act. It's on us, a Republican Congress and a Republican president, to act and to honor them. I want to bring up our lead manager from the second impeachment, where these officers' acts were played out for the country and the Senate jurors, and the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, who also represents in his congressional district many of the officers who were hurt that day, our ranking member, Jamie Raskin.
Morning, Mrs. Swalwell, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman. And I was a member of the Intelligence Committee back in 2015 when the CISA 15 was enacted, and it was apparent to me then, even in the midst of very intense, vigorous debate, that we needed greater public-private cybersecurity collaboration. So I want to first just thank the witnesses for coming today and sharing their perspective, their members' positions, their industries' concerns, because we want to get this right, and we want to build on the success that we have. So we're hearing about new cybersecurity attacks every day, yet the federal government at the time had very little visibility into what was happening on private networks. And the private sector was receiving very little information from the federal government on cyber threats. I would say that is probably still happening today, and the biggest complaint I hear from you all, especially on JCDC, is it's a one-way relationship, and I know we want to do more to increase what is shared with you in the private sector. But I laid out in the 2015 debate that there was at the time almost no cyber sharing between the public sector and the private sector. And CISA 2015 sought to change that, and it has changed that. It's provided the legal framework to facilitate cyber information sharing between the federal government and the private sector. It gives companies the confidence that they'll be legally protected if they voluntarily share cyber threat information with the Department of Homeland Security or with their competitors. It's rare that these days we see such a wide consensus on any topic, but on the issue of reauthorizing CISA 2015, I've received a very clear message from everyone I've talked to. Do not let it lapse. Stakeholders have consistently stated that CISA 2015 has drastically improved public-private collaboration, helping our cyber defenders better do their job. Of particular importance to me was that in 2015, that we addressed privacy and civil liberty protections and demonstrated that their effectiveness was in ensuring information shared with the government is protected and always used properly. As CISA 2015 was developed, I advocated for strong privacy protections, and I'm glad to see those statutory requirements have achieved their outcomes. We must move quickly to reauthorize CISA 2015 before it expires in September. Maybe we could change the name so it's not so confusing with the other CISA that we're working on. That is one change I think we would all welcome. Yeah, a good name change. While it's reasonable to discuss if there are ways to strengthen the law going forward, we cannot allow such discussions with such an imminent timeline to delay reauthorization. It's also important to remember there are steps that Congress and the administration can take in the interim after reauthorization. While establishing the legal regime to facilitate cyber information sharing, the maturation of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the original CISA, has provided a central hub for public-private cyber collaboration across critical infrastructure sectors. If CISA lacks the people and forms necessary to receive, analyze, and share cyber threat information, CISA 2015's provisions will be rendered meaningless. One important step for Congress that I have been working with in this committee is to codify the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative and better define its mission and structure. And I hope we get a vote on that again this Congress. And the administration should restore the Critical Infrastructure Partnership Advocacy Council, also known as CPAC, or establish a similar new entity that provides a mechanism for critical infrastructure collaboration. Finally, we must continue to support CISA's efforts to improve automated indicator sharing and implement its Threat Intelligence Enterprise Services Program. Again, I thank the witnesses for participating in this. I expect I will hear across the board the value of CISA, that there are reforms that we can put in place, but if it's deciding between not authorizing and trying to find better reforms and risking this lapsing, or reauthorizing something clean and then fighting and working together collaboratively ultimately to get reforms in the future, I think that you would choose the latter. With that, I yield back.
And I'm grateful for the FACE Act and its protections in that respect. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized.
Yes, I understand that Mr. Swalwell was waiting for me to come in and speak on this bill so that he could
I don't know who you are,
so that he could
go ahead.
decide how to vote.
Who are you?
And
I
so
don't know who you are.
I will explain
belongs to the gentlelady from Wyoming.
what my position is. The FACE Act, very simply, has been weaponized against the pro-life community and ignored when real terrorism is carried out. It has become just one more tool in the anti-life, anti-humanist, anti-American toolkit based on forgiving the unforgivable and criminalizing our reverence for life. It has been broken, and the Democrats, the radical leftists, prosecutors and judges and bureaucrats are the ones who broke it. We now recognize that while the original intent of this law may have been good, the implementation, especially...
I second that thought, so that's great. I now recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you. And to follow what Ms. Rinaldo was saying about JCDC, Ms. Keene, can you discuss how JCDC facilitates information sharing? And to Ms. Rinaldo's point, how important is it for CISA 2015 to be effective that we have a mechanism like JCDC that facilitates cross-sector information sharing?
I think, how JCDC, disseminates today and the critical importance of it, and to your point that it's a relatively new program, one of the things about it is it allows for rapid distribution when threat happens between industry and government, so that we have, in essence, a real-time channel of things that are going on. From an industry perspective, it's really important that we even broaden the scope of it to work closer with the ISACs and to think about how we can distribute not just to, the top level of industry, but actually pull it down. From a JCDC perspective, I think it's one of the best things we've seen come out of CISA so far, and it's still evolving. But that ability to have information sharing without repercussion, I think, is one of the areas that we really need to focus on. And so that's why, looking at the in essence, reauthorization of this act is so important, because we're just at the beginning of where JCDC could go. And as we start to think about, we've mentioned China, but if we think about the Chinese threats that have come in from Volt Typhoon, Salt Typhoon, Black's Typhoon, Nylon Typhoon, there's a lot of typhoons right now. We're going to see, in essence, cross-pollination of those critical vulnerabilities exploits, and JCDC is going to be incredibly important to ensure we disseminate rapidly through that.
And to Ms. Rinaldo's point about security clearances, it's a frustration I share as well. My district is high-tech and biotech, 2 nuclear labs, and often I hear what Ms. Rinaldo was saying, which is like, yeah, the CEO is cleared, but like he's not the engineer, and he doesn't understand. One, his time is limited, or her time is limited, and 2, like he or she doesn't have the skill set to receive and understand the threat. But the problem on the government side is they're not really willing to clear that many individuals. And I just welcome your feedback on if you're seeing that, because if you remember, like 2 years ago, it was like a 19-year-old who was like caught leaking like Ukraine war plans, and it was like a military service member, and you're like, wait, we have a 19-year-old, like basically the war plans for Ukraine, but we have like 20-year professionals who we could give like one-day passes or more information to better protect critical infrastructure, and we're like cautious about that. So it just seems like we've got the priorities crosswise, but I'd welcome feedback from you, Ms. Keene, on that.
It's interesting, I've been in cybersecurity for over 25 years, and some of the first attacks or hacks I dealt with were nation-state level attacks going around the financial services network. If you can imagine, I was 23 years old walking roofs with Scotland Yard and looking at data center break-ins, and then some of the first financial services attacks. I have never held security clearance in the United States. Been a risk executive of 2 Fortune 25 companies. The reality is that we do need to re-examine how we look at clearance, but we also have to think about the fact that cybersecurity is to some degree, and we talked about it, a team sport. I've known 15-year-olds who've had inventions become state secrets and housed in the NSA, and I've known 90-year-olds who still sit on boards and talk about cybersecurity. We need to make it, the reality of today's risk is that cyber risk is now business risk. And it's a question of how we look at protecting all the different areas companies look at risk from financial, operational, resilience perspective, everything. And so from a clearance perspective, it's getting the right individuals in an organization cleared to ensure they understand, but also to make it more of a common language so we understand the impact risk has on our organizations.
And just as Mr. Ogle said, like I welcome ideas, feedback. I'm a little hesitant to want to amend this at all at this point, at this late hour, risking that opening this up would not see it reauthorized. But I do agree that with Mr. Ogles that we need your feedback, and just because we reauthorize it, if we do it in a clean way, that doesn't mean we can't down the road, even right after reauthorization, have hearings and markups to make it even better. But avoiding a lapse is my priority, and it sounds like, Ms. Keene, you agree.
That would actually be my recommendation. I think that a reauthorization cleanly and then look at how we optimize and look at things down the road for a couple of reasons. We're at the beginning of AI. We're still trying to figure out some things regarding the different types of attacks. Like I said, we have malicious mistake and malfunction, and I think there's a way we can strengthen public-private on the back of it, but I would recommend a clean authorization.
Great, thank you.
The president has our troops sleeping in squalor, not on the battlefields of Afghanistan or Iraq, but in Los Angeles. And I guess this is what you would expect from somebody who has described our brave war dead as suckers and losers. We were promised that the immigration policy would deport the most violent criminals. That's something I support. That's something everyone here supports. Instead, it's deported a 4-year-old American citizen battling cancer. It detained a U.S. Marshal over the weekend. Nobody is asking for this. Our troops deserve much better. And the cost of this, $134 million of your hard-earned tax dollars. 134 million. Mr. President, take the troops out of Los Angeles and get back to a sane immigration policy that only deports the most violent in our community and addresses the real workforce crisis in agriculture, hospitality, childcare. We can do better. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. And members are...
Judge Scudder.
You've always been my favorite. I hope you know that.
Thank you, Darrell.
Thanks, Aaron.
And we don't shut down the government on this side.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, I spoke. I deserve this. Yes,
I had a
please.
unanimous consent request that I had neglected.
The gentleman will state his unanimous.
The unanimous consent request was to enter into the record an article from The Hill that quotes the Speaker of the House saying, and I quote, "We can eliminate an entire district court. We have power over funding, over the courts, and all these other things, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and Congress is going to act."
Touche, without objection. I will also place in the record Leader Schumer in 2022 saying, Kavanaugh, he'll pay the price for as Roe resurfaces. Without objection, both will be placed in the record. I now represent, he's still my favorite colleague from California with me. Please.
Judge Scudder, will it surprise you if we see a federal judge murdered?
I mean, that would be tragic beyond words, and I think that's implicit in the question, and I hope everyone would recognize that.
Is the threat level that we see today against federal judges at a temperature where you see yourself and your colleagues changing their own security posture?
Judge St. Eve may want to weigh in on this from the resource perspective, but there is no question that judicial security is an enormous priority. It's a priority that has intensified in recent years, and it's responsive to everything that you all are recognizing across, across all of the questioning that we're hearing today. And your support for our security needs is essential to us. So judges can go about doing the duty that we've talked about in the hearing so far.
And I support that, and I think most of my colleagues support that. I'm concerned. Recently, the chairman of the committee, Mr. Jordan, said to Punchbowl News on June 13, he sees few members excited to increase judicial security. And then Chip Roy, also a member of the committee, said on that same day, maybe they, the judges, should stop screwing everything up. My concern is that we have put your security in the hands of the executive branch, and it's often lately that the commander-in-chief will tweet out or issue statements against judges, and now your security is in the hands of somebody who doesn't like a ruling that one of your colleagues has made. That's why I introduced what's called the Marshals Act. Every member of the Democratic side supports it. I hope Mr. Issa remains open-minded to supporting it as well, but this would move judicial security from the executive branch and would have the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court appoint the U.S. Marshals. Essentially, judges would become in charge of their own security. What do you think about that, Judge St. Eve?
Thank you for the question. The U.S. Marshals are on the front line of our security. They have the protection details. They investigate threats. We are very thankful for their extraordinary efforts. I can tell you in Chicago, the U.S. Marshals are incredibly professional and responsive, and anytime I have had any issue, they have responded immediately and appropriately. And although they aren't part of our budget, we hope that they are fully funded. In terms of a separate force, that's not something that I have looked into, and I don't believe the Judicial Conference has a position.
So it wouldn't be a separate force. It would essentially, right now the president appoints the U.S. Marshals. They're confirmed by the Senate. This would move judicial security, the U.S. Marshals, to appointment by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So essentially, the Marshal Service would fall under the judicial branch, and so that way you would still have to come to Congress to receive, an appropriation for the judicial branch and its security, but it would allow the branch that is facing security threats to have more agility in surging where security is needed. And the concern is that if a judge in their deliberations is worried that a ruling that goes against the executive branch, when the executive branch has shown a willingness to issue harsh statements at judges that could bring threats, they may let that creep into their deliberations and not be as independent as we want. So Judge Scudder, I'd welcome your thoughts on moving the marshals from the executive branch to the judicial branch.
Yeah, I don't know, like Judge Steve, I don't know that the Judicial Conference has taken a position on the point, and therefore I can't give you that. But embedded all throughout your question and everything that you're acknowledging is the priority to enhance judicial security wherever the marshals are located. I completely agree with everything Judge St. Eve has said about the marshals. This is a very, very professional, committed group of men and women, and in my experience in Chicago, they are A+.
And I want to make it clear to Mr. Issa, because he and his colleagues often point out that Judge Kavanaugh had a serious attempt on his life and his family, and that was wrong, and that should be condemned, and it has been condemned by our side. And my introducing this legislation is entirely motivated by the fact that I don't know who the president will be 4 years from now, 8 years from now, 25 years from now, but I do know that what we have seen where threats are escalating against judges, I think regardless of who the party is at the White House, their independence needs to remain independent of their own security threats. And so, Mr. Issa, that's why I would suggest moving it to the judicial branch so they can be in charge of their own security. And with that...
if the gentleman would yield.
Yes.
For the record, because I think this is...
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell.
Nobody asked for the cruel deportations that we're seeing right now. We were promised that violent criminals, the worst in our community, would be removed. I'm good with that. I don't want violent criminals who are undocumented in our community. I'll help with that. Put out a list of 1,000 people. Most Americans are up for getting those folks out of our community. We were promised the worst would be removed. What we have found is that rather than focusing on the worst offenders in our community, this administration arrested a 6-year-old battling leukemia and detained that 6-year-old in the cruelest, harshest conditions. ICE detains 6-year-old leukemia patient and his family, even though they followed every immigration rule. In detention, the children cried every night, according to the family's attorney. The woman's 6-year-old son also experienced bruising and bone pain, both symptoms of leukemia, and missed an appointment related to his cancer treatment. His sister barely ate. Don't give me this Christian nonsense that I've heard from some of these witnesses. I'm a Christian. I'm a father. I'm from a law enforcement family. I was a prosecutor. This is not who we are. This is not what any American signed up for. This administration deported a 4-year-old American citizen battling cancer. They arrested a U.S. Marshal. They're not up for this job. They're just up for the cruelty, for owning the libs. They're not serious about protecting our communities from the worst. And these ICE agents running around our communities like masked bank robbers, terrorizing women, they're going to get themselves hurt, and I hope that doesn't happen. And we're already seeing women are being targeted by people who are impersonating ICE agents. I hope every state that is able to, and every community that is able to, unmasks ICE with their policies. If you're standing on the law, you can show your face. The FBI, they're probably doing a search and seizure right now at some dangerous criminal's home. They're not masked. They loudly, on their blue jackets, have that yellow insignia that says FBI. No other law enforcement agency in America runs around our communities masked. It's time that we unmask ICE. This is an administration that does not want to be held accountable. Secretary Noem does not want to come in and testify. Stephen Miller certainly doesn't want to sit in that chair and defend putting this 6-year-old battling leukemia into deportation proceedings. Tom Homan doesn't want to come here and defend why he thinks it's okay to target people based on their accent and the color of their skin. Yes, he said that. Thankfully, a California court has shut that down, and hopefully more lawsuits are brought across America to shut that down. But my Republican colleagues in Congress, they don't work for the administration. They are, theoretically, an independent branch of government. Article 1, the preeminent branch of government. So why do they go for this? Why do they enable this? Why aren't they outraged that this 6-year-old boy was in a condition where children are crying every night and experiencing bone pain as he fights cancer? This issue is pretty simple. Go after the worst and protect the most vulnerable, the ones who are contributing to our community. So if our Republican colleagues are not up for holding the administration accountable, then Democrats will. So, Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Clause 2K6 of Rule 11, I move that the committee subpoena White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller.
Gentlemen, yield back.
Yes.
Is there a motion?
Motion to table.
There has been a motion to
Recorded
table.
vote.
The gentleman moves the motion to table. The motion to table is privileged and non-debatable. All those in favor of the motion to table, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no?
No.
The ruling of the chair is the ayes have it. Mr. Swalwell,
Record vote.
is there a motion for a recorded vote? A motion for a recorded vote has been made. We will allow the clerk a moment to resume his position. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Green of Tennessee. Mr. McCall. Mr. Higgins. Mr. Higgins votes aye. Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Jimenez votes aye. Mr. Pfluger. Mr. Pfluger votes aye. Mr. Garbarino. Mr. Garbarino votes aye. Ms. Green. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Luttrell. Mr. Luttrell votes aye. Mr. Strong.
Aye.
Mr. Strong votes aye. Mr. Burkeen.
Aye.
Mr. Burkeen votes aye. Mr. Crane. Mr. Crane votes aye. Mr. Ogles. Mr. Ogles votes aye. Mrs. Biggs. Mrs. Biggs votes aye. Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans votes aye. Mr. McKenzie. Mr. McKenzie votes aye. Mr. Knott.
Aye.
Mr. Knott votes aye. Ranking Member Thompson. Ranking Member Thompson votes no. Mr. Swalwell. Mr. Swalwell votes no. Mr. Correa. Mr. Correa votes no. Mr. Tanadar. Mr. Tanadar votes no. Mr. Magaziner. Mr. Magaziner votes no. Mr. Goldman. Mrs. Ramirez. Mrs. Ramirez votes no. Mr. Kennedy.
No.
Mr. Kennedy votes no. Mrs. McIver. Mrs. McIver votes no. Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson votes no. Mr. Hernandez. Ms. Poe. Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter votes no. Mr. Green of Texas. Mr. Green of Texas votes no. Mr. Goldman has not been recorded. No. Mr. Goldman votes no.
Mr. Clerk, how's the chair recorded?
The chair has not yet been recorded.
Chair votes aye.
The chairman votes aye.
Are there any other members who wish to have their vote recorded? If not, the clerk will report the total to the committee.
Mr. Chairman, on that vote, there were 14 ayes and 12 noes.
The motion is passed. At this time, the chair would recognize the gentleman from the great state of New York, Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. At this time, we would recognize the gentleman from the great state of Texas, Mr. Luttrell, for his questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to point out Mr. Swalwell's point about that young man, and I don't know the...
Gentleman yields, and I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to each and every one of our witnesses today and the men and women, sworn officers, a part of your departments who are responsible for making sure that these events are successes. And as the son of a cop and a brother to 2 police officers and a former prosecutor myself, I know that although when the confetti comes down and the winning teams celebrate, we see the players who were a part of the victory, but we don't see the men and women in law enforcement who made sure that it was a safe and fun environment for everybody who witnessed or participated in it. So thank you for that. My state, Mr. Chairman, California, over the next couple years, we will host, obviously, in 2026, the World Cup. I think we have 8 games. Folks will see in February, Super Bowl 60, where the San Francisco 49ers will run an undefeated season and cap it off by winning the Super Bowl at home, something that has never happened, a perfect season and a victory in your own stadium. And of course, in 2028, the Olympics in Los Angeles, and we expect the Bay Area may host some of the cricket matches. So we are ready to work with law enforcement and support its needs. And Chief Graves, I know you're looking at me as I'm talking about the 49ers, and you're talking about the Chiefs, and congratulations to you all on that win over the 49ers. I was only surprised at the parade that you referenced that I didn't see the referees on the float because they were a part of the victory too. But again, I do look forward to working with all of you coming up on this, and this committee wants to be responsive to what the funding needs are going to be. I want to ask first, Mr. Davis, you had referenced that the Fusion Center can be a force multiplier. You said to best safeguard against evolving threats, intelligence agencies must remain open to collaboration. If intelligence and analysis are eliminated or its capacity and capabilities to share intelligence with the fusion centers were reduced, would that make us safer? And what impact would reducing the fusion center capabilities have on the safety of our communities?
Sorry. I think it would be devastating, Congressman. The fusion centers have become such an integral part of everything that we do, especially on the prevention side of things. If there's any inhibition to continuing their work, the United States will not be as safe as it could be. I will tell you that the analysis that comes out of those centers every day is the first thing I read when I was the police commissioner in the city of Boston. It informed all of our decisions, and it helped us prevent serious crimes, not only at the terrorism level, but also at the other levels that we deal with day in and day out crime. So if that ability becomes impeded, either through a lack of funding or through the propensity of big organizations to snap back to old practices, which is what I fear after the changes that we made in 12 years ago, whether or not there's a slow degradation of that cooperation. That has to be looked at all the time. And the preventive work that can be done in the fusion centers outweighs what they're able to do afterwards.
And Mr. Davis, I also want to credit you, obviously, for your work during the Boston Marathon bombings, but you had publicly credited at the time the Alameda County Sheriff's Office and its Urban Shield program, which had worked with and your department had trained with for many years. And that was a very public validation of a training program that has made our community and many communities safer. And I know the community appreciated at the time you crediting that program.
Truly, and it was funded by UASC grants that gave us the ability to prepare, and you fight the way you train.
That's right.
And that's what it gave us the ability to do.
Yeah, Chief Graves, it's only fair. I took a shot at the Chiefs. I do want to give you an opportunity to also respond to the question of reducing intelligence sharing capabilities between your office and the federal government and what impact that could have.
We have like I said earlier, we have a great historical, positive working relationship with our federal partners in Kansas City. That being said, the Fusion Center is an integral part of some of that communication. Not only do we work with them regularly, and I have no worries of getting notified of something that we should be aware of. We work side by side with them at Arrowhead Stadium during the football games, and there's been a couple things that have been taken care of and handled right away. It would definitely inhibit our ability to maintain that open line of communication of emerging threats.
Great, thank you. And Chairman, I yield back, and I thank the witness. That means the bully is telling you, hey, I can protect you, give me your school money every day. I mean, that's, or asking the mob, to protect your business, and that's your security. I mean, Ukraine would never go for that, and they shouldn't go for that.
Is that the point?
Yes, and this is what Putin has been doing. Putin is playing Trump, and he drags this out as he continues to bomb Ukraine and kill innocent children. And it's because he knows Donald Trump is not serious about bearing real pressure down on Russia. He's not going to put secondary sanctions on him. He's not going to continue to send weapons of consequence to the battlefield in Ukraine. And so Putin can just play this delay game. It makes us look weak, and worse, children in Ukraine suffer.
The NATO Secretary General did come out of the day of meetings in Washington saying that they really did have a breakthrough, that the President Trump committed to taking part in aforementioned security guarantees for Ukraine. Do you see that as progress?
I see it as progress that all of those leaders were at the White House, and it wasn't Zelensky being bullied by the president and J.D. Vance. That was a good look. I want the president to succeed here. I want to see peace in Ukraine, and I don't think he can do it on his own. I do think he needs European leaders, and they have skin in the game as well as far as what they're spending on their own defense and Ukraine's defense. But at the end of the day, talk is cheap. What is Putin willing to do? And it doesn't look like a week later that we've gotten much out of that stunt in Alaska. It looks like he came to Alaska and was toasted and given the Lifetime Achievement Award by Donald Trump, and hasn't delivered on anything of consequence since.
I just talked to Brian Stelter.
I now recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman. And Chairman, that was an elegant, impactful, artful statement, but you buried the lead. Our chairman of the subcommittee has been selected by his colleagues to be the chairman of the full committee with the resignation of Chairman Green, effective earlier this week. So congratulations. I'm excited for what that means for the full committee. You and I have worked quite well over the last 3 years on this committee, especially to take on our cyber challenges, and to have somebody at the full committee with your cyber knowledge and expertise as our cyber threats are only escalating, and AI has made that even more challenging, and the threat of quantum computing and what that means for cryptology. You're the right person to help lead the committee to do that. So looking forward to working with you. And I think I speak on behalf of my colleagues that we congratulate you on that win. Earlier this summer, Chairman Mark Green and I went out to my congressional district and visited Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. And committee staff from both sides were there as well. As you know, Lawrence Livermore National Lab is the nation's premier research and development facility. It attracts the best and brightest minds from around the world and helps keep the United States on the cutting edge of innovation, particularly related to national security technologies. Lawrence Livermore and our national labs are indispensable partners in our national effort to defend cyberspace, keeping their finger on the pulse of our adversaries' tactics and motivations while helping to develop novel technologies to detect and disrupt malicious cyber campaigns. We saw Lawrence Livermore works firsthand, and it's critical to national efforts to secure critical infrastructure our constituents rely on every day and the operational technology that underpins it. The lab's work is paying off dividends, especially related to the Chinese threat actors like Volt Typhoon, and I'm pleased that the lab today, through Dr. Gleason's testimony, will talk about its important work. Notably, the lab is a key partner in CISA's Cybersecurity program, which places sensors on private sector networks on a voluntary basis to monitor for and detect cyber threats. The lab contextualizes data from the Cybersecurity program with other intelligence feeds, generates unique insights into malicious cyber activity, and provides network defenders the know-how to kick out the adversaries. The knowledge derived through the lab's work benefits programs and activities across CISA, and I'm eager to learn how Lawrence Livermore and the National Lab community can continue to support federal efforts to better secure operational technology. Additionally, I'm interested to learn how other programs at sector risk management agencies and CISA, like the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, JCDC, support efforts to mature our collective approach to security. It's incumbent on the federal government to collaborate with its private sector partners to bring security resources to bear to these under-resourced sectors. Also, at this point, I want to just remind the committee and the public that CISA can only function when it is fully staffed. It should not be free from reforms, but currently it has lost approximately 1,000 employees since the DOGE cuts began to take place. That affects its ability to work with the private sector and be responsive. Fewer brains and reduced funding means less capability, less capacity, and less collaboration, which is detrimental to ongoing efforts to mature operational technology security programs. And also, I'd like to reiterate my strong support for the reauthorization of the other CISA, CISA 2015. Stakeholders have referred to CISA 2015 as the most successful cyber law ever passed, and I was a part of writing it and passing it in 2015 as a member of both this committee and the House Intelligence Committee. We cannot allow this critical authority to lapse. Toward that end, I was pleased to see a clean 10-year extension included in the Senate Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2026. It sends a clear message to our partners and our adversaries that cybersecurity continues to be a bipartisan priority in Congress. I look forward to working with my House colleagues to provide non-federal stakeholders the certainty they need to continue their strategic collaboration with the government by passing a clean authorization before it lapses later this fall. With that, I yield back.
About redistricting in California, it's moving full steam ahead in Texas, and in response, things are moving along in California. Republicans have filed a legal challenge in California, but it could very well make it to voters to sign off on if this moves ahead in November. At the very same time, the governor has taken it upon himself to transform his social media kind of as part of this into very specifically spending all of its time mocking Donald Trump by mimicking his social media style. I mean, you can just see some of the posts of the memes and the things that have been put out. What is I'm seeing a lot of Democrats applauding this approach by Gavin Newsom, but is this all more about his presidential aspirations than anything else? And if it is, are you okay with it?
It's a teaching moment. He's mirroring and reflecting what Donald Trump is doing. So to ask the country, is this who you want as your leader? Somebody who debases us and reduces the dialogue. And yes, I mean, it's silly, it's cheeky, but it also is going on offense. And it's something Gavin Newsom has done in the cases he's brought on immigration, in the redistricting move that he's doing to level the playing field against the crooked way that Texas is trying to fix their maps. It's making Donald Trump react. And I think you can either be on your heels reacting to Donald Trump as he goes after the most vulnerable, or you can put him on his. And there's not many leaders right now, I think, on our side who are stepping up and going on offense, and Gavin Newsom is.
So interesting. Thanks for coming in. I really appreciate your time. Thanks. John? About something else that the President Trump is very focused on, his latest move and posting on social media going after the Smithsonian Institution and museums. And where he already has ordered a review of it, but now saying that apparently he wants it to go further in a review of all of the content in the museums. What he's suggesting is, he says the Smithsonian's out of control, but also suggesting that museums are focusing too much on, the way he puts it, in part, how bad slavery was. And he wants to take on the Smithsonian, just like he says he has taken on colleges and universities. Do you think that will work here? What do you think he's saying?
Who is this guy? Is he a publicist for slavery, like a lobbyist on behalf of slavery? It doesn't make any sense that he would want to erase one of the ugliest things that's ever happened in America and educate our children, especially about how we make sure it doesn't happen again. He's done the same thing with another ugly day in America, January 6th. He's tried to erase that day and take the heroes of that day, the police officers, and make them the villains, so that he also erases his own responsibility. This is what he does. And the question is, will the Smithsonian cave? Colleges have caved, law firms have caved, entertainment companies have caved. The lesson that I've taken away from this is, if you band together and show strength in numbers, you can stand up to this bully. But if you do these one-off drug deals, it just reduces who we are as a country and gets us one step closer toward authority.
But it's also putting people in a position, I mean, we just had a Republican congressman on who John rightfully asked, what is your take on what the president's putting out here, and putting Republicans in the position of reminding everyone that they think slavery is bad. I mean, just where the focus then becomes again, I'm not sure what to do with it.
I'm not sure what to do with Republican congressmen who are not willing to be a check, because in an ideal scenario,
in his defense, he said slavery is bad, so we'll just put it that way.
Good, but he also, can fund the Smithsonian then when we vote on a budget and say, keep the slavery exhibits there. And the president also took the impeachment exhibits out in the section that covers Congress and the executive. Again, he can rewrite history, but he can't erase what actually happened. And he makes our children less educated when he does that.
I ask
you. Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the ranking member, gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell, for his second 5 minutes of questions.
Dr. Gleason, what is the status of Lawrence Livermore's other partnerships, including its support for the National Infrastructure Simulation and Analysis Center?
Those are in a similar status to our support for Cybersecurity, our work for National Risk Management Center, again, looking at infrastructure interdependencies and cascading consequences of disruption to infrastructure, has been going on for a decade. Our interagency agreement expired in March for that work.
What is the risk to what you're able to see, or what you were able to see and what you don't see now, as far as cyber vulnerabilities that are out there?
I think one of the big things that we miss, and I want to emphasize the idea of cascading consequences. A lot of times when we're thinking about cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, the target may not be that infrastructure system itself. It may be what is supported by that infrastructure system. And when we fail to understand those interdependencies, we are opening up avenues for our adversaries to disrupt key national security capabilities. A great example of this is some of the capabilities on the territory of Guam. This is a small, very hardworking, very dedicated power company, but very under-resourced. And some of our most important capabilities for defending against a potential China invasion scenario are based in Guam. There are ways to defeat those capabilities that go through, for lack of a better word, the back door, by exploiting kind of the weak underbelly, the underdefended part of our critical infrastructure, because those are very small systems. By not understanding those interdependencies, it's not that they don't exist. Our adversaries know them. If we don't, we're not looking in the right place for our defense.
In just over 2 months, I'm sorry, did someone else? You're good? In just over 2 months, the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015, the other CISA, is set to expire. And Mr. Jimenez alluded to this. It's essential that we act promptly to reauthorize it in a clean way, and I'm open to any reforms that we could discuss down the road under the chairman's leadership of the full committee, but I think there is a wide consensus that we don't have time to do that now. Congress will be in recess effective this week until after Labor Day, and then we will be right up against CISA's expiration. Ms. Bolton, your testimony discusses the importance of reauthorizing CISA 2015. What would be the national security impact if the law lapses?
The estimates are that about 80 to 90% of information sharing would be cut off from the federal government. When I was at the Cyberspace Solarium Commission, one of the main things that we tried to do was to make sure that the federal government at least had a full threat picture. And this authority is part of that work, a significant part of that work. And we must reauthorize it. If we are about 2 years away from a contingency with China in 2027, as ODNI has said, then we have to be fully prepared. We have to be taking steps now and not just addressing, the information sharing piece. That should be a baseline. It should be a given. And we should be focused on the additional steps that we need to take. So I hope that that gets reauthorized quickly and that we can move on to some of these other topics that we've been discussing and addressing some of the other extremely serious issues, because China is not waiting. China is preparing now, and so are all our other adversaries.
And Mr. Lee, your experience in the private sector, is there any world where CISA 2015 lapses and a private sector company that has been hit would still be willing to come forward and share information with the Department of Homeland Security?
No, I think it's incredibly important to reauthorize it, and the bidirectional communication from government to private sector, especially on the threat picture overall, is exactly one of the roles and responsibilities that makes a lot of sense.
And then that's because no CISO would be able to go to the DHS without liability protection and their fiduciary duty to the shareholders. I mean, they would be exposing themselves to a lot of risk. Is that right?
Absolutely, and that's actually a broader issue, even looking from a National Guard perspective of could we go in and respond to a utility that gets hit? We have no indemnification to give utilities, so they're not going to let us touch anything and do any action on it. There are very simple bureaucratic things that can be fixed to increase national security tomorrow.
Great. Thank you. Go back.
I now recognize the ranking member, Mrs. Swalwell, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you. As part of the fiscal year 2022 NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, Congress authorized the Cybersecurity program, which deploys sensors on a voluntary basis on critical infrastructure partners in order to detect malicious activity, as I noted in my opening statement. A critical part of that program is the role that Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory plays in analyzing cyber-sentry data. Dr. Gleason, what is the current status of Lawrence Livermore's partnership with CISA on cyber-sentry?
We've supported CISA in various aspects of critical infrastructure security for about a decade. Currently, we have agreements that our funding agreements are making their way through DHS processes. Unfortunately, those are still making their way through DHS processes, and our work with CISA expired last Sunday.
What does it mean that it expired? Is it turned off? Are you able to operate without authorities or funding? Like what is the posture right now for this important work?
Yeah, national laboratories are not legally able to operate without being funded by a government agency, so our threat hunters stopped monitoring networks on Sunday.
Who needs to turn it back on?
We need the interagency agreement between DHS and DOE to be completed.
Okay. Would this be a sign-off from the secretaries of both Energy and Homeland Security?
Somewhere in that chain, yes. I'm not completely familiar with the funding processes that exist at those agencies right now, but yes, it needs to be signed off by both organizations.
And earlier in your testimony, you alluded to some cameras and malicious activity that you had found that had been Chinese placed. Is that the type of work that the Sentry program does?
Absolutely. We're looking for threats that haven't been seen before. We're looking for threats that exist right now in our infrastructure. One of the great things about the Cybersecurity program is it takes the research and marries it with what is actually happening on the real networks. So we're not just doing science projects, we're deploying that technology out in the real world, detecting real threats.
And just so I understand, you now, with the program that has at least lapsed or hopefully temporarily lapsed, the sensors are still deployed, is that right?
That's correct. The sensors are still deployed. They're still gathering data. We just aren't analyzing the data that's coming in.
So I guess you're telling me because you don't have the funding, you're not allowed to look at the data legally. That's the problem.
That's correct.
So theoretically, we have deployed sensors on critical infrastructure, and there could be a malicious attack occurring right now that you are not legally able to see until the program is refunded.
That is correct. Lawrence Livermore analysts are not able to monitor that data right now.
What is the risk of you being blind to what these sensors are detecting?
I think everything that we've talked about in this hearing, we've seen how important critical infrastructure is to everything we do as a country. I think I'll echo a talking point I frequently hear from Dragos. One of the most important things is getting visibility into what's happening on our OT networks. We don't have enough of that, and so losing this visibility through this program is a significant loss.
A major priority of mine has been to improve operational collaboration between the federal government and the private sector. To do so, CISA must have the appropriate forums for such collaboration, including the JCDC and CPAC. Ms. Bolton, how can JCDC be strengthened so that it can better facilitate OT security collaboration, and why is it important that CPAC be restored?
Thank you for the question. I think CPAC is an organization that allows industry to talk to the government, and right now, industry is not able to convene with the liability protections that come, or the information sharing protections that come with CPAC authorities, and so that becomes a bit of a problem, and it's a national security concern when operational collaboration can't happen between those two entities. I believe it's very important for CPAC authorities to come back. I think as much as possible, industry is continuing to try to work through other mechanisms, but there was nothing specifically like CPAC. And we also are we're continuing to work with JCDC and other areas within CISA on OT security issues. I think what we'd like to see from JCDC, if we're talking about additional work, is more concrete OT efforts that industry can get involved with from the ground up.
Great, thank you. Yield back.
Gentleman yields.
A champion of accountability, champion of free and fair elections, and a champion of the American way of life. Eric Swalwell is the son of a police officer, comes from a law enforcement family, has a distinguished track record as a prosecutor. Eric Swalwell knows what it means to actually advocate for law and order. And Eric Swalwell knows what lawlessness and disorder looks like. And he's never hesitated in calling out the lawlessness and disorder of the Trump administration, of Donald Trump, of extreme MAGA Republican sycophants, and on that violent mob that we saw that fateful day on January 6th. It's my honor to designate Congressman Eric Swalwell as the ranking member, the lead Democrat on this subcommittee, and the House Democratic Caucus will be in good hands with Congressman Swalwell, with Representative Jasmine Crockett, and Representative Jared Moskowitz, all with the steady hand of Ranking Member Jamie Raskin. I yield now to my good friend, the Congressman from the great state of California, Eric Swalwell.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries and Ranking Member Raskin, for your confidence in me and the team, and also for making sure that we never forget the heroism of the officers on January 6th and what they represented as we were seeking to count the electoral votes that day. Since the Civil War,
What are the 3 most important dates in American history? December 7, 1941, September 11, and January 6. The last 2, I didn't even have to give you the years because they are seared into our memories. And because we saw them with our own eyes. But now, Donald Trump has pardoned all the insurrectionists, telling the country whatever crime they commit, even if you kill somebody and it's in his name, you walk. Donald Trump has made villains of the cops who tried to stop them, even those cops who died. He's gone after those who have investigated him or helped impeach him over January 6th, and he's even forced the Smithsonian to whitewash and take his name off the January 6th impeachment exhibit. You know, my father was a cop. I have 2 brothers who are cops, and I was a prosecutor. But you do not need a family legacy of law enforcement to know that January 6th was the worst of wrongs. That in this country, we don't choose criminals over cops. Donald Trump is trying to do with January 6th what many fringe groups have done with September 11th. Telling us it wasn't planes that flew into the buildings, but holograms or missiles, or that it was an inside job. And here's why we didn't buy the 9/11 crazy talk then or the January 6th lies now. Because we saw them with our own eyes. No matter your political party, our job now is to make sure that we, the people, always keep those eyes open. That we not accept falsehoods, even from our friends. And that we always choose the truth over Trump. Happy to yield now to one of the members of our team, gentlelady from Texas, Jasmine Carter.
Gentleman from California.
Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized.
I have listened to my colleagues in this Epstein debate on the Republican side ask over and over, why did the Democrats say nothing during the Biden administration? I've heard TV anchors ask. In fact, I was asked this morning the same question. Now, put aside the fact that in 2019, I called on Andrew Acosta to resign because of his connection to the Epstein files, and I wanted to learn more about why Epstein was not prosecuted. Put aside what Mr. Raskin and Mr. Cummings did. Let's just take you at your word that Democrats said nothing. Is that a reason for you to do nothing? I don't understand the logic here that because you think the Democrats did nothing on the Epstein files in the Biden administration, that to own the libs, you now have license to leave sexual assault victims unprotected. It's just crazy that you hate the Democrats so much that you would let the most notorious child sex trafficker and the people connected to him not be held accountable because you want to own the libs. Let's just take you at your word. Okay, the Democrats did nothing. So you're going to do nothing is what you were telling me. The Democrats, of course, did not do nothing. But let me boil it down to a lesson that I have right in front of me every morning when a 6-year-old wakes me up around 5:45 and wants to watch the same movie over and over and over. That's Frozen. And there's a lesson in this film where Elsa is told by one of the trolls in the movie that if you can't see the future, all you can do is the next right thing. And having seen this, again, 100 times in the last couple years, my takeaway is if you don't know what's going to happen next and you can't change the past, all you can do is the next right thing. So even if you are right that the Democrats did nothing in the past, wouldn't the next right thing be to sign the discharge petition? Or are you so obsessed with just scoring political points that you would punish sexual assault victims? Is that who you are? I don't think that's who you are. When I listen to some of the legislation you propose on your side, I do believe sincerely you care about victims. And if that's who you are and you care about victims, sign the damn discharge petition. Okay, you can own us. I don't care. You can own us 1,000 times. If it gets us to 218 signatures, I will let you have whatever victory you think you're accomplishing. But it seems to me that you're more interested in telling me not to believe my own eyes, which is what the president is doing. The president is telling us not to believe our own eyes. And it's not just on the Epstein files and the birthday card. And by the way, guys, we can bring in a handwriting expert, but I have 2 eyes. And I know what that man's obnoxious signature looks like. And so do you. But Donald Trump has told us that he would end all wars on day 1, that prices would plummet and jobs would soar. And where are we? Ukraine has never been weaker. We've never seen more jobs lost in America since Donald Trump was last president. Even conservatives are complaining about how expensive grocery prices are. And even his own health, he's trying to tell us not to believe our own eyes. Joe Biden looks like an Olympic athlete compared to a man who is hiding his illness. Donald Trump is a broken man who has broke his promises. And if we don't start checking him, we are going to be a broken country. So my friends, if you sincerely believe that Democrats dropped the ball and did not do enough under the Biden administration, then join us now in doing the next right thing and sign the discharge petition. Otherwise, you're telling sexual assault victims this is just about scoring political points, and they come last. I yield back.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, I yield to the ranking member.
Well, just to add to your very eloquent statement there, it seems like these days every accusation is a confession. So the accusation is the Democrats have somehow changed their...
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for unanimous consent.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to submit 2 sets of documents. The first is a series of emails from the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. They are making FOIA requests to get their own FBI files and not having any success. So I want to bring attention to that by submitting that to the record. The second document that I want to submit to the record, for the record, I know we don't usually read these. This one's not readable. It's completely redacted. For the most part, the first 50 pages. This is actually the search warrant that was served on James O'Keefe for a diary that he had already given to the government 2 months before. And as it turns out, there were no indictments here, yet he still doesn't know why he was raided, and I think he deserves to know. So,
Without objection.
Thank you.
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California.
Director, the first time you saw Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files. Did you close the files or keep reading?
I have reviewed not the entirety of the files, so
you haven't reviewed all of the Epstein files?
Personally, no.
You're the director of the FBI. This is the largest sex trafficking case the FBI has ever been a part of. Buck stops at the top, and your testimony today is you have not reviewed all of the files.
What I've been doing is been busy providing the safest country this country has seen in modern U.S. history in historic speed, because the men and women of the FBI are given the resources to reduce the homicide rate, to reduce the drug trafficking rate, to reduce the amount of children that are being trafficked, and the number of pedophiles.
It sounds like those children being trafficked would appreciate the director reviewing the files. You said you don't know the number of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not released anyone's name that we have not released anyone's name in the Epstein files that has not been credible.
Director, could it at least be 1,000 times?
We have released every piece of legally permissible information.
Okay,
you can characterize the numbers however you want it.
You're claiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times. Which
It's not.
Means
It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
My job is to provide for the safety and security of this country. My job is not to engage in political
And that
innuendo
includes protecting
so you can go
sexual
out to the
assault victims.
sticks and get your 20-second hit in your fundraising
reclaiming my
article.
time,
But
Director.
keep going, reclaiming your time, because the
Director,
people of California
If
are
Trump-
being
if the
underserved by
president-
your
If the
representation.
president is not implicated, why not release everything that involves him?
We have released everything, the president and anyone else's side, that is credible and lawfully be able to be released. Your fixation on this matter and baseless accusations that I'm hiding
also
child
Mr. Massey's
pedophiles is disgusting.
interest.
Anyone that says that needs to look at the stats alone. And go back to the state of California, who's receiving the biggest surge in FBI resources through my redeployment because the cities of Los Angeles, San Diego, and San
Reclaiming
Francisco
my time,
need it.
Director. Remembering your oath to tell the truth, did you ever tell Donald Trump his name is in the files?
I have never spoken to President Trump about the Epstein files.
Did you ever tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
The Attorney General and I have had numerous discussions about the entirety of the Epstein files and the reviews conducted by our team.
Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
And we have released where President Trump's name is in the
It's a simple
attorney's
question.
file.
Did you tell the Attorney General that the President's name is in the Epstein files?
During many conversations that the Attorney General and I have had on the matter of Epstein, we have reviewed
The question is
painstakingly
simple.
who
Did you
can
tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files? Yes or no?
Why don't you try spelling it out
Yes
if you're
or
going to mock me?
no, Director?
Use the alphabet.
Yes or no?
No? A, B, C,
Director,
D, E, F? Don't
it
wanna
sounds
do
like
it?
you don't want to tell us. Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files?
Why don't you try serving your
Director,
constituency
did
by
you tell the
focusing on
Attorney
reducing
General
violent
that Donald
crime in this
Trump's name-
country and the number of pedophiles that are
Director,
illegally
reclaiming my
harbored in
time,
your
Director.
sanctuary cities in
Director,
California?
reclaiming
I'll
my
work with
time.
you on that. Do
Regular
you want
order,
to
Mr.
work with
Chairman.
us on that?
Director,
Time
reclaiming my
belongs to the
time.
gentleman from California.
Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files?
The question has been asked and answered.
You have not answered it, and we will take your evasiveness as a consciousness of guilt. Director, did Donald Trump ever say to you, just find and release the entire truth? Don't worry if I'm in it.
The instructions from the administration were to release all credible information, and we have done that.
Did Donald Trump ever provide information about Jeffrey Epstein as an informant?
Donald Trump has not been, and I can only speak for the FBI, an informant of the FBI.
So, Director, you've played this cute shell game where you say you can't release everything because the court has said that it legally is not allowed to be released, but the court calls bullshit. Judge Richard Berman said that when you went to the court, quote, information contained in the Epstein grand jury transcripts pales in comparison to Epstein investigation information and materials in the hands of the Department of Justice. So let's move on, Director. You wrote a book called Government Gangsters. You identified 20 individuals in that book. You put me on that list at the top of the list. Thank you. My children find it flattering. 20 of those individuals have been investigated or have had adverse actions. Director, considering that you have identified these people as, quote, government gangsters, will you recuse yourself from making any investigation decisions about these individuals?
Anyone that has been terminated at the FBI has been done so
the
because
question
they failed
again.
to meet the muster in
Director,
their constitutional
I will
obligation.
work on the audio-visual capabilities.
I'm
of
going to
the room so I
borrow
don't think
your
you can hear me.
terminology and call
I'm reclaiming
bullshit
my
on your
time.
entire career in
I'm
Congress.
reclaiming my
It
time,
has been a
Director.
disgrace to the American
Director,
people.
I'm reclaiming my time.
You can reclaim your
Will you
time all you
recuse
want.
yourself?
Mr. Chairman, you're going to allow a witness to speak this way?
Mr. Chairman, would you give
recuse yourself, Director?
The gentleman has no time to
Mr. Chairman, would you
Mr. Chairman,
admonish the
point of-
witness not to insult members?
The gentleman has no time.
Mr. Chairman,
the
just
committee will remember.
quick point of order. Could the gentleman be extended an additional 20 seconds to complete his thoughts since the witness decided to interrupt him
And
continuously?
then the witness will be able to respond if he wants. We'll make sure
Thank
he has
you.
time to do that.
My question
Gentleman,
is,
continue.
will you, Director, recuse yourself, yes or no, from investigating or making decisions about the 60 individuals, including myself, that you identified as government gangsters? Yes or no?
Time of the gentleman has expired. The witness may respond if he would like.
And the answer was no, as I heard.
Correct.
Okay.
Great.
I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And there's no doubt that drones, particularly for law enforcement, have changed the game for surveillance, for search and rescue, to assist in active SWAT operations. They can save not only civilian lives, but also protect our men and women in law enforcement. And the Sergeant just alluded to a problem that we've run into, which is that cheaper Chinese components have made it much more affordable for law enforcement agencies to have these capabilities. And we all know the risk that comes along with having Chinese components in our drones, which is that they could be pinging back to mainland China and affecting our own national security in the way that they could be gathering intelligence on behalf of the Chinese government. And certainly no law enforcement agency wants that. But Sergeant Dooley, I imagine you would tell me that when you're making decisions to protect the people who work with you and to protect the public, you have to think about like what can bring public safety and how you can stretch your dollars the best. Is that right? I mean, is that a kind of some of the tension you have to deal with in making a decision like that?
Not anymore. The state of Florida legislated that, so we don't have to worry about it. We just pick what we need. And they also supply funding now to help us reach those goals of transitioning everything away.
And my goal, just as yours stated earlier, is that we would have entirely an affordable American-made supply chain. In fact, in California, there's a company, I think it's made up of former Navy SEALs, called Inspired Flight, which is American-made components. It sounds like you're familiar with Inspired Flight.
Oh yeah, they're good people. I like them.
Yeah, same. So my question for Dr. Wallace is, knowing that 86% of the drones, knowing that a high percentage of drones are made in China and that the overconcentration can affect our national security, what can we do in the near term to make sure that law enforcement has affordable drones, but on the manufacturing side that we're able to expedite our ability to produce American-made components?
That's an excellent question. I can tell you I'm not a manufacturing expert. I can tell you that from a capabilities perspective, currently Chinese-made drones have a capability that can't be matched at the same dollar value. I do think that given that limitation, the choice that ultimately has to be made with regards to especially public safety is one of lives. Because at the end of the day, if a public safety agency doesn't have access to the tool they need to protect that public at the capability they need to accomplish what they need to do, the ultimate price will be either a law enforcement member's life or potentially a member of a citizen's life. So I think that is a metric that should be taken into account.
Agreed. And Sergeant Dooley, are there any examples that you have not given the committee as to how a drone facilitated saving life or protecting the officers who work with you that you think could animate the need for giving law enforcement more resources in this area?
For the counter side or just a success story from having drones in public safety?
Both.
Okay, so from a success side, I'll give you an example, and I give it all the time. I work very closely with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office in South Florida, and there was a deputy and I were eating lunch, and we get this call of a stabbing inside a home, and everybody fled. And unfortunately, the person that was the criminal in this particular case was off his medication, recognizing that we may have had some type of mental episode, and we approach it differently. And as soon as we arrive there, the deputy gets permission to put his drone, and I supported him by making sure everything was squared away. He put his drone into the house, and within 3 minutes, he located the suspect. We recovered the suspect. They're in custody. No one got shot. No one got dog bit. Everybody went on about their day, and the person who had been stabbed was getting medical attention. And this was solved in minutes versus like an hour standoff with a SWAT team without this type of technology. And from the other side of not having detection or counter UAS that's been hindering is a bulk of what we get is like careless and clueless individuals where they're just as dangerous at times as someone with bad intent. For example, the person in California, they gave the example of hitting the seaplane that was, I forget the name of it. That person didn't do it on purpose. They were just careless and clueless. Same thing in Texas during the flooding. We had someone strike a helicopter. They didn't do it on purpose. Sometimes careless and clueless individuals are just as dangerous as those that have those negative intentions. And I think that having this technology both for public safety provides a tremendous value, of being able to save lives and protect lives, but more importantly, having the ability to detect and potentially mitigate if needed, also could provide those values where we can keep manned aviation safe. You know, we harp on that terrorist side, and okay, the careless and clueless can be just as dangerous as those individuals that intended and planned something versus someone just popping up trying to make a YouTube video and they actually hit an airplane or violate airspace.
Great.
And we
Well,
lock something down.
Thank you for your service, Sergeant, and to the men and women that you serve with, I'll say what we say in our law enforcement family, be safe. So, thank you.
Gentleman's time's expired.
I yield back.
And we now go right to the gentleman from California. What does the hat say, Eric?
Jimmy Kimmel Live.
Of course. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'll get to AI in a moment, but I'm not going to miss the opportunity to ask my colleagues, the proponents of free speech across the aisle and the champions who sit with me, to condemn in the harshest terms what is happening right now from our administration. The second late-night comedian has been taken off the air because the president did not like a joke. I want to first condemn in the harshest tones the murder of Charlie Kirk. He should be with his family right now. He should be with his children. He should be alive. He had a right to say what he wanted to say to who he wanted to say without any physical violence being brought his way. And Jimmy Kimmel had a right to say what he said, which didn't in any way suggest that somebody in the MAGA world had been responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk. He was just pointing out what folks online were doing as Twitter detectives before any investigation had been completed were saying about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And then he pointed out that Donald Trump, who did not go to Kirk's memorial service at the Kennedy Center over the weekend, when he was asked how he was feeling about the assassination, did not address it, but rather went right to a construction project. And for that, Jimmy Kimmel was taken off the air. That's not who we are. That's what it looks like in China. That's what it looks like in Russia. That can't be what it looks like in America. And the foundation of this, the genesis of this, was the president's FCC chairperson, Brandon Carr, sending a tweet that said, essentially, and giving an interview to a podcaster where he said, essentially, if ABC doesn't want to do this the easy way and suspend Jimmy Kimmel, we will do it the hard way, and it would be government censorship. Maybe I was not loud enough in the past when Republicans spoke out against government censorship, and if that's the case, I will go back and revisit whether I could have been louder. But that does not mean that today Republicans are silent just in an effort to own the libs. If you didn't like cancel culture when you thought it was happening in prior administrations, you certainly can't look at what just happened in our country and accept that that is something we should live with and we should tolerate. So I want to make it clear, there's going to be a Democratic majority in just over a year. And to the FCC chairperson and anyone involved in these dirty deals, get a lawyer and save your records, because you're going to be in this room and you're going to be answering questions about the deals that you struck and who benefited and what the cost was to the American people because that happened. I want to now move, Chairman, and I appreciate you holding this hearing, to AI and ask our witnesses first, and I'll start with Professor Richards. Professor Richards, what is the risk to the country if, particularly to children, if the government does absolutely zero on AI as far as legislation, as far as what they see, privacy that's taken, biases that are reinforced? What do you see the risk could be?
Thank you, Congressman. There are a number of risks. Some of them are known and some of them are unknown, which I think is why it's essential to preserve regulatory flexibility by the states as well as the federal government to deal with these questions. We've already discussed and at some length, but perhaps we can't discuss it enough, the losses that the parents who are seated behind me have suffered. When we have in some cases, the reckless or the rash deployment of software agents in children's lives, there was discussions about telling them about Santa, but they've done much, much worse. That's one of the risks, exacerbating the mental health epidemic. There are risks to children in schools. Children don't read books anymore because of AI models. States should be able to address that pedagogically with particular consequences for our critical thinking skills that are necessary for our democracy.
Thank you. And also, Mr. Thayer, I just want to, just coming from another meeting, I want to thank you for your remarks earlier about the FCC chair and his hypocrisy about censorship. With that, Chair, I'll yield back.
Would the gentleman yield for
Yes.
a second? As often happens, there's a nuance of total agreement here, and I just want to speak well of your championing free speech. And perhaps those who leave broadcast, like our mutual friend Bill Maher, might find an even greater place, an even greater amount. I do agree with you that we need to continue to promote free speech, and your kind words related both in defense of one, but also on Charlie Kirk is very much appreciated. And I look forward to continue to work with you.
You and I have worked on a lot of issues, and I think this is one we can work on as well. Thank you, Chair.
Appreciate it.